they're a major AI engine for Wall Street banks, for example, and they have different programs that are sold to different entities, but ultimately they are a massive contractor to essentially every U.S. intelligence agency, and that includes DHS and ICE, which a lot of the critical reporting on Palantir focuses on their contracts with ICE specifically, but all of that is intended to also be used against people that are not illegal immigrants.
In a recent interview with investigative journalist Whitney Webb, she uncovers the shocking origins of mass surveillance through John Poindexter's Total Information Awareness Program. Webb reveals how a government initiative designed to predict terrorist attacks transformed into a sophisticated private sector surveillance machine.
It's meant to be an entire dragnet of basically pre-crime, and Palantir, in concordance with Poindexter's ambitions, has been a major piloter of pre-crime technology in the United States. I think they began doing that in New Orleans initially, but they call it predictive policing is the term that they use. But a lot of other companies have attempted to also get in on this. One of the most notorious being Predpol, that was a partnership, I believe, with UCLA and LAPD or something to that effect. And they're notoriously inaccurate, and they're almost always piloted in low-income minority neighborhoods, and basically are a way in essence, what happens because the accuracy rate is so low is that you're creating this pipeline of people basically being sent to prison, or being caught up in crimes that are very petty. But you're just sending police to all these areas in a relatively discriminatory way to what Palantir and Total Information Awareness would later do, like Saffron Technologies, Syntech Technologies, that were defense contractors and trying to basically use predictive analytics to determine what terrorists would do next, all before 9/11 even happened. And of course, there was a renewed demand for that type of technology and these sort of innovative solutions in the immediate post 9/11 era. When this information, was reported on Total Information Awareness, there was a huge outcry throughout, U.S. mainstream media. A lot of organizations, including the ACLU and organizations like that, rightly noted that it would eliminate the constitutional right to privacy and create this very disturbing era of mass surveillance by, I think one of the mainstream media reports on it said that it would fight terrorism by terrifying U.S. citizens, basically, and making everyone a suspect under this type of this paradigm he was seeking to usher in. And so it was eventually, under pressure. It was, I think, first announced in February 2003. And by May, they attempted to change the name to Terrorism Information Awareness, trying to move away from the idea that it would be total. It would surveil absolutely everyone through a name change. But obviously, it didn't change how the program actually worked. It would still be focused on everyday Americans. A total dragnet, really. And in that same month where that name change happened, Peter Thiel incorporated Palantir. And as Palantir was developing as a company, Peter Thiel and Alex Karp, the Palantir co-founders, reached out to Poindexter directly through Richard Pearl, who's a well-known neoconservative figure and was also one of the architects of the Iraq War at the Bush-era Pentagon. And, basically they hatched this plan to privatize this program, rightly calculating that if they turned it into a entirely private sector enterprise, the outrage would, essentially dissipate, which it remarkably did, because, originally it was a public-private partnership housed within DARPA, and then by making it this private sector enterprise, a lot of the concerns about it disappeared, and this is arguably because by moving into the private sector, they were able to accomplish a lot more than they could have by being affiliated directly with the public sector, even though they contract with the public sector.
Palantir, co-founded by Peter Thiel, emerged from this surveillance blueprint, using algorithms originally developed for PayPal's anti-fraud system. The company quickly became a primary contractor for intelligence agencies, expanding surveillance capabilities into health monitoring, predictive policing, and comprehensive citizen profiling.
And so Palantir, funding-wise, was set up with money from Peter Thiel himself, and that the algorithm for it had originally been developed at PayPal, and the other funding source was the CIA's In-Q-Tel. And one of the figures that helped made that funding decision was the CIA's chief information officer at the time, named Alan Wade. And Alan Wade had been one of the top allies of the Total Information Awareness with Poindexter, in the immediate post 9/11 era. And so the CIA was Palantir's exclusive client for, I believe, the first 6 years of its existence as a company. And its engineers went to Langley, CIA headquarters in Virginia every 2 weeks for several years as well, where the CIA was developing their algorithm with them, in a very direct partnership. And Alex Karp has even said that the CIA was always the intended clients of Palantir. So Poindexter's goal was extremely broad. I mean, it really covered, it's absolutely staggering when you think about it. So the way it was initially sold to the public was this is a way to stop terrorism attacks before they happen, by collating so much data from all different sources, and then using it in some sort of analytic or AI to determine, if certain data points are flagging that a terrorist attack will take place here or there. But there's various different aspects of this program that didn't really get enough coverage at the time. So one is that they attempted to use free market forces to determine if a terrorism attack would happen before it happened. They created basically what's referred to as a terrorism futures market. It was really like a forerunner to poly market and some of these predictive markets where people bet on things online. It was basically that, but about whether a terrorist attack will happen in the Middle East, or if there will be turmoil in the Middle East, if someone like Yasser Arafat would be overthrown. These were the kinds of things they were going to have these unnamed investors bet on. Another one was focused entirely on health under this program called biosurveillance, which actually a lot of it Palantir helped launch with HHS during the COVID era. Things like analyzing American wastewater to determine if there is going to be an outbreak of a disease before it happens, again, with an algorithm, or basically, surveilling Americans' health data and to determine if there will be a pandemic before it happens, or if there will be a bioterror attack. Because remember, this was also in the aftermath of the anthrax attacks. And so a lot of that, particularly on the health front, has absolutely come under the portfolio of Palantir in the years since. They now control basically all of the health data at HHS, and also the CDC under the HHS, and also the NHS in Britain as well, and have continued to expand on that front. But Palantir, also works extensively now in the private sector as well.
Webb's investigation exposes how privatization allowed mass surveillance to grow unchecked, creating a system that tracks Americans' habits, movements, and potential behaviors without meaningful oversight. The story reveals a hidden infrastructure of control operating just beneath the surface of everyday life.